Hey, you're watching Forbidden Panels, and I'm Alexander Storm from the Shadowe Knows Network, and I'm a guest on this week's episode. Looking forward to chatting it up with all things pop culture with AJ and all the rest. You're in the right place to see us. Thanks for tuning in, man.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to the PanelCast. I'm your host, AJ, as usual. And with me this week, we got a special guest here, Mr. Alexander Storm of the Shadowe Knows Network. What's up, sir?
Hey, what's going on, AJ? What is going on, man? First of all, thank you for having me, man.
Well, thank you for being on the show. I know you are busy. You're a very busy man. I've seen your schedule. You're all over the place. Just a flagrant blotch on
Mm,
the SKN network. You're just everywhere, all over the
absolutely.
place. You seem to be the man over there. Is that what's going on?
No, far from it, brother. Far from it. That'd be Chet. That's the man over there. I'm just the guy that just holds his back up a little bit. That's all.
No, that's it. Right, right. Okay. Yeah, so Alexander is from the Shadow Knows Network. They're a friendly group of ours that we get
Yep.
along with. And I thought I'd have him on the show so he can talk about a little bit about what the Shadow Knows Network is about, since you'll probably be seeing us randomly at shows and stuff out and about. And
Yep.
um, we have a friend of theirs on our show very often, and that's Joel.
Yeah.
And we also were sharing a loss recently, but also
Yeah.
we were sharing a good friend in Richard. Richard was on both of our shows,
Absolutely.
and both of our groups, our companies together.
Hmm.
So I thought, why not bring him on here so we can sit there and talk about how much Richard was an asshole for leaving us. For just ditching us with Joel like he did.
Oh man, yeah. You know, especially on that aspect, I got to tell you that again, I know while my loss is absolutely not in the same vein because of the time and everything. I had a shorter amount of time with him, but the impact that he made on just being just a friend was like he had been there from like we were the same age, like I was in elementary with him. He was a giving, kind-hearted individual. I loved every moment that I had with him, and it was it was a treat for you to share him with us, to be honest with you, because the time that we took was the time that you also could have had as well. So it was just, it was such a blessing. The same thing with Joel. I love Joel. He is a beautiful spirit. He always enlightens and makes everything else great. So, it's good when you have good people around you because it
Absolutely.
brings other good people. Because if I hadn't known either one of them, you and I wouldn't know one another. So I'm thankful for the both of them for that, man.
Yeah, I agree. The same way and same sentiment. Um, Especially now that Joel's in England, texting me at all random hours of the morning
Yes,
to
yes,
tell me stories about what he's got going on. I'm like, Joel,
yeah.
brother, I know it's 3 in the morning and then I'm normally up, but to get a text at 3 in the morning.
Yeah. And, Google and your phone and time, the world time, and it works both ways of the world. So it's gotta be a little
um,
bit more considerate, Joel.
I mean, damn, Joel, I want to talk to you, but it's like 4 in the
Yeah,
morning, and
yeah. I
um,
love the dude, man. Love the dude.
yeah, like I said, like we had said before in the previous podcast, on the
Mhm.
panel cast last time, our associate Joel is off in England having the time of his life, messaging us back and forth throughout the day. I just sent him a text right now showing him some of the new figures I just got in,
Oh, okay.
um, and he was very excited and said some choice words to me about the toys I got in.
Okay.
So,
So,
some of
well,
which I
what
want.
did you pick up while we're going?
Well, I don't want to ruin the time, but I
Hey,
will.
hey, since we're here, let's see what you got.
We are here. Let me make some
Yeah,
adjustments. I will not unbox.
Okay, no, yeah, no unboxings. We'll save that for. They've got to subscribe for that, bro. They can't just pop in and get that for free, man.
But I will show you the new toy I got. I'm a big fan of the third-party Transformers.
Okay, okay.
So this is the Japanese
Oh wow.
mini version
Yeah.
of Predaking.
Oh yeah, that is kind of cool. Wow.
So
I
the
like
trans-
their box design as well too. I always love that Velcro that you can open up,
Yep.
display it if you want to take it out or not. I love that.
I love the box art is all
Yeah.
crazy.
That does look cool, man. Yeah.
It's gonna be nice and fun when I open it up.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's going to be a special unboxing for that. Again,
Yeah.
they may need to make sure they subscribe and leave a comment down there so they know when that. I'll definitely be putting that as a reminder for me. I want to see that, man.
And I'm mad because Joel's in England till the end of the week, so we can't unbox it anytime soon.
Yeah.
And
Well, what's
that
he doing
bastard
over there?
said,
Is he recording some unboxings over there? He's in the England coastport. He can find a toy store or something over there
"That's
to go
what
to
I'm
something.
saying." But I
You
know,
know,
I know Joel. He's buying toys to
Yeah,
unbox when he comes
that's
back.
that's why he's got the point. Go in those toy stores, show us some
Right,
stuff, see
right,
what the merry old people in England are going through.
right. During the times, during the rare opportunities where he's sober over there, I'm
Oh,
sure,
okay.
I'm sure he's shopping.
That
But
explains it.
right, but when you're in jolly old England, you do as the
Mhm.
English would do,
Yeah,
especially if you're
exactly.
going to go
Well,
over to. I believe he's in Bath today, and
oh, okay.
then he's probably going to head over to Amsterdam at some point.
Well, then definitely you're not gonna once he makes it to Amsterdam, you're not getting anything from him at that point, bro.
Right.
You know?
I mean, he may bring some goodies when he comes home.
That's well, I don't know. Like I said, I've seen how things go over there. Don't put it in your carry-on bag for God's sake.
Plus, you don't put that much around Joel because
Yeah,
he'll eat it.
exactly,
Your
exactly.
store will be empty by the end of the day. You'll be like me and James and probably you at an all you can
Mm,
eat.
exactly.
Y'all gotta go. It's time for
Oh,
you
I
to
know
go.
that. Yeah. I'm almost guaranteeing that.
So, Alexander, why don't you tell
Yes,
us a
sir.
little bit about what SKN is and what you guys do over there?
Absolutely, man. The Shadowe Knows Network, unlike being over here, we talk about all things pop culture on there. There was a larger segment when we started in the beginning where we did a little bit more like of the wrestling content, and that was like, basically when we had other people on. We've kind of moving a little bit away from that. I don't know if we're gonna, I always love the stuff that you guys do. I figure sometimes there's certain wheelhouses that we don't need to be into. So
Mhm.
if you find it's being done better, just point people in that direction. But we have two live streams we do during the week. On Wednesday nights, it's going to be Toy Box Chronicles, myself, and Chet Maddox. We talk about all the week's toy releases. It's just one of those catch-alls for like, if any new releases or any just our certain opinion. Don't go too in depth on anything over there. Just try to have a good time. And then on Friday nights, it's our major catch-all show, Pixel, Plastic, and Ink. And that's more like, for films, toys, comics we review. It hasn't been doing too well on the comics, but it's been doing the interest in it's in everything else. So uh it's usually a fun time. We try to have it like on Friday nights, it's myself, Chet Maddox, Dr. Brentley, and Rad. So it's different than the two-man show on Wednesday nights. And then we do for Bandito Radio, action figure frequencies. And that's the different toy store or toy podcast. That's more we definitely go in depth. We take like certain subject matters and we go kind of go in depth onto them. So it's something that, it's a Passover on Wednesday. You're just getting the
Mhm.
main stuff, trying to catch up. But if you really want to get the in depth and real people's opinions and everything of how, like, the world of toys are going, and you just really want, like, a raw and intensive conversation, that's what is on for Bandito Radio. And we were blessed to be on Bandito Radio. It was one of those things that David Vonner had a vision and idea. And he just put together, he said, you know what, I think this would complement the 112 car, the Bandito. Think if it had its own radio station, but we could do this for like toy enthusiasts. If you're
What is the
into toy
Bandito anyway?
photography,
Uh, you talk about the Bandito. What is that?
Bandito is a 112 scale uh, um, action vehicle. Yeah, it's a but it's not so much an action really other than it's, the one of the most amazing cars that I've ever seen for 6-inch figures. It has, just the innovation in it. Open up the hood, press the battery, it activates all of the power on the car. So the lights and the tail lights and the end dome light and the radio dash kind of goes off. It's
Nice.
fully customizable. So if you want to have like, if you want to change the wheel patterns, if you want to paint it a different color, sand it down and paint it and have like maybe like some fluorescent coloring or anything, kind of like the Fast and Furious cars that are going out. You can
Right.
do that as well. A whole bunch of different kits. You can do ones where you can make it an off-road vehicle, you can make it a lowrider vehicle. It's so multifunctional that it's like you're not getting one car. You've got the possibility to get like dozens of cars from this. And we kind of partner up with Odd Frog Entertainment, and they've been spearheading that, and that what led David Vonner onto the group over there. And then he came up with the idea of Bandito Radio, and we got involved through with it that way after speaking with Odd Frog and David Vonner. And we thought, hey, they said let's take some of your old material and just throw it on the channel. It's like, well, why would we do that? It's like, like, wouldn't you just want us to just do something new and fresh for you? Why would you want repurposed stuff? And they were like, yeah, yeah, we would love that. And it's been really cool, man. I enjoy the radio aspect of it. You can see visuals of it on the Shadowe Knows Network, but most of the time you're just hearing radio. It's fun. It's a little bit different. The pressure's off because you're not really playing for the camera. You're playing
Hmm.
for the listener. So if you haven't heard it, it's now living on its own channel now. It was over on the Odd Frog Entertainment channel, but now it lives on its own Bandito Radio 112 FM on YouTube. You catch it on Spotify, on anywhere you get your podcast from, man.
Nice. And you guys play music and all that stuff as
Yeah,
well, or is it just
great genres of music that's on it. Every genre that you can think of. If you're into metal, it's there. If you're into like rap, it's there. If you're into R&B or country, they even have some Spanish language artists on it. So it's totally inclusive for everybody to listen to, and that's what I like about it. Because sometimes your music's separated, but real good music isn't. You can listen to it across the board.
right?
And if you're in the middle of the night and just like, you're opening up and doing unboxings or something, it's the radio station to put that on. If you're doing toy photography or customization, it's just piped in for the toy world, man.
Nice. So instead of us, zoning out on TV shows we've already seen in the past, we
Exactly.
can pop on the Bandito radio and have that going on in the background and
Yeah.
work on our stuff. That's a good thing to have.
Yeah, you know what? I thought it was one of the smartest ideas I've heard from somebody in a while, and they were like, "Well, let's kind of you don't need to sell me on it." Yeah, it's like I
Right.
understand it. I think it's really good. Yeah, it's fun. It's nice to be on the ground floor of this happening.
Oh, that's awesome. Hopefully it works out for you guys and it keeps going strong for you and brings you lots of audiences and opens up different directions for you guys to go through.
You know what? I would hope it does that for everybody that does the things that we're doing. It's like, it's not just, when we kind of jump into these programs, we're looking like, are we doing things to make the better general community better? If we're not like, if we're not serving that, then you got plenty of people doing crap on their own, but like is
Right.
it going to actually like like magnify what you're doing over here? Is it going to magnify what the Purple Gang is doing? Is it a platform where we all feel like we can take ownership of? Because when you think about like Sirius XM, there was years ago wrestling wasn't on Sirius XM,
Right.
and you got to think that's like probably one of their second biggest demographics now. And you and I both know everybody seems to have their own wrestling podcast. Well, that started with somebody
Everybody.
Everybody with opinion has
We
one.
had one at one point called "Shoot the Mark," so that tells you how long. Yeah.
Exactly. And the best part about that is that it's helped only magnify the smaller voices, and
Mhm.
it's actually enhanced the bigger. So if Bandito Radio can do that, then as a community, I think we all grow because their vision is to get its own Sirius XM channel. So let's hope it makes it to that portion.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
So, who is Shadow, and how
Uh
does he know so much?
all right. Well, a little bit of a history lesson. When we started the channel, it was there is an actual real shadow. If you've ever listened to any of the over on CRN in the days, your little cable ready network, like
Mhm.
it used to be like you go all the way to the end of the cable channels, and there was like actual radio and everything. Well, there was a cable ready network. Is Shadow was a host of in the square circle. And when we started the YouTube channel, it wasn't necessarily for us. We were like, Shadow, I'm looking at a couple of people. Shadow loves not just wrestling but toys. And I was like, man, I'm looking at YouTube and I'm seeing a guy on YouTube that's similar to what you are, man. So why don't you, instead of like, just picking up these toys, why don't you do a couple of toy hunts? And he thought that was it's kind of cool, but he slowed down over the years. So a little bit of time is like, look, we can't put up one video and then it goes like like weeks without anything else. So we decided to do a podcast to kind of help with the channel. And then it started taking off more and more. And then Shadow was like, you know what? Uh, my time's a little bit limited with a lot of things, and also, being an older wrestler and going through the thing, the
Right.
body takes a beating, and some days he's got his great days, and some days he didn't. And he just thought a natural progression is, why don't you guys really ramp up the programming and kind of take it over? And I think that would be the best way to honor everything else on it. And we've been repurposing it because a lot of people, he has his fans. A lot of people love him. He was on radio long. He was in the same market competing with Howard Stern in the days when Howard Stern was huge. He
Shock
was
jock.
also,
Yeah.
oh yeah, he was out there hustling. And so a lot of people, know the name Shadow for that, and we've been kind of like doing so what if we start calling ourselves SKN a little bit more? We don't want to not remember our legacy, but in the same way, we don't want to make it where it was just about wrestling when he came into the channel a little bit more. And he absolutely agreed with it. He's one of our biggest cheerleaders whenever something's down. I've known him since I was 16, 17 years old. So he's like an older brother to me. So it's always great to get the blessing from him. And he digs the stuff that we're doing now. And I just, matter of fact, I just talked to him this morning. So we were going over a couple of things having it. So I told him, I said, I was going on the show today, this afternoon with some wrestling fans as big as you, and he put a smile on his face. He said he just loves people that loves wrestling.
Awesome.
So that was a little bit of the not so known history of how we started, and now from there we just kind of like moved into a little bit things. Live streaming, we kind of everything was recorded. Now it's live streamed. We've created more shows. We've got Getting Medieval, where it's kind of like on sword sorcery and all that kind of Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing. We've done the Tribunal, which myself and Richard was doing, was a GI Joe podcast, which everyone said was going to be a little bit controversial, knowing how the Joe community is. Everyone tried to talk us out for doing it. Like, you guys really want to take that on? And we've just been having just a good time, man. It's a blessing to do what you do and see I guess the immediate ramifications of it, because when you're doing a live stream or something, you can see interaction from people. When, like, when my Hollywood screenwriting career, you didn't really kind of see it, when you're a
And
writer.
if you did, it took a long time before you did.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when you're a writer in Hollywood, this is how they treat you. Write the story, shut up and go away.
Right.
That's all. That's Just shut up and go away. Don't want to hear your opinion after you wrote it. Just get out of here, cash your check, leave. And this gives us a little bit more creativity and exposure in a way that we can speak directly to people and they can see our work. And I've enjoyed that process a lot more than doing anything in Hollywood that I've done.
Awesome. And with that, we're gonna take a quick break. You know what's weird is I always thought that Shadow, the
Hmm.
only Shadow I was always familiar with was, I mean, the Shadow,
Oh yeah.
but
Hmm.
but Shadow Stevens. I grew up with Shadow
Oh.
Stevens, and so when I saw your spelling of the name Shadow,
Hmm.
Dowe,
Hmm.
his was Doe, and so
Oh.
for some reason I kind of associated it with both. And Shadow
Hmm.
Stevens, if for those of you who don't know, back in the day, he was a very big name in game shows. He would show up all over the place on
Hmm.
Tic Tac Toe, Hollywood Squares, and all that stuff. And then he was also on this one sitcom with Ted Knight, where Ted Knight was a cartoonist, and he had like this
Oh.
cartoon
Hmm.
cow on his arm that he would draw
Yeah.
and stuff. And Shadow Stevens was one of the guys that lived with him, or was like, or no, that's Jim J. Bullock.
Yeah. Ginger boat. Yeah.
But Shadow Stevens would show up sometimes on the show.
Okay.
I know random shit, dude.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think. I remember the show because I remember Too Close for Comfort.
Was that it?
That
Yeah.
was it. Too Close for Comfort. I remember it was
Yeah,
one of
I
my
ain't the
favorite
only old
shows,
guy
man.
around here, so
Yeah.
like,
Oh, no. Definitely random crap that no one else would probably know. It's probably floating through the both of our heads.
but whenever I hear Shadow, that's the name I associate it with, and
Well,
all the
okay.
stuff that comes with it.
Yeah, yeah.
So when I first
Yeah,
heard of
well,
you guys, I was like, I wonder, like, did he start a podcast?
well,
Everybody's got a podcast nowadays,
I'm
so I wouldn't
sure
be
he probably
surprised.
does have one, but no, our shadow's a little bit different. So,
Well, there you go. Now
Yeah.
I know, and knowing
Yeah.
is half the battle.
It is. It is.
You guys also have you guys are partnering up with a lot of different people nowadays. You're talking about the Purple Gang Gang
Yeah.
and Odd Frog Entertainment, and now you have Starlight Digest with you guys as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's when you have so many, I guess, bigger YouTubers, how do you make your mark? Well, for me, it was one of those things of thinking about, like, all right, chances are, you're not going to go up against somebody and just steal their thunder all the time, right?
Right.
So, especially if you're trying, a lot of people start this and they stop this because they can't get the numbers, or they feel like, man, it's like, I just don't see myself winning. And instead, what they should think about is, well, how do I partner up with a group of people that are in my same scenario, yet we rally each other? How do we work together in a way where we can actually have an opportunity to, because when you put a bunch of smaller guys together, they become a bigger community.
Right.
And so, it was a process that I had initially, and I talked to Darth Moocher over at the Starlight Digest podcast at a show in Southern California. We were there front to front because I love this 3D work, because he just, yeah, I also do a podcast. Oh, okay, it's Star Wars podcast. Okay, well, we don't always talk about Star Wars, so that's kind of cool. And the Purple Gang Gang was more or less for David Vonner was on one of the shows, and we were in Toy Atlanta, and we were talking, and David was like, I think they would be really good for Bandito Radio. And I told him, oh yeah, I thought so. I thought the show they do, I don't know if you've ever seen the show, but it's out there. It's like, I think one of the guys described it as like a podcast of, like, if Monty Python had done a podcast. So it's way different than any of the stuff
Right.
anybody else does, but their energy is such great in it. And Van and Jordan over there are just great human beings. And we were like, okay, so the thing about it is, how do we self promote one another and also cheerlead for one another? Because I think too many people put YouTube in a competitional thing, where it's like,
Right.
I have to beat you and do that, but, like, why are you sitting around and basically trying to harm each other when you could all work in the same harmony of one another? And so if you can get that down and just be like, hey man, I enjoy the stuff you're doing. If you're listening to me, listen to them. And then, it's one of those pay it forward kind of things that works itself out. So
As opposed to the scrolling ticker I have going across where we're fighting each other.
yeah, which is the same thing too, man. And again, like, when when Richard was over our channel, it also bridged the gap over for you guys, and
Right.
I always think that that's how number one, you don't get the best out of something when it only has your viewpoint, you know? When you get someone
Absolutely.
else and have some
Otherwise, I
form
do
of
the show alone.
exactly. And there are, how many times you've been on YouTube and it's a guy by himself, he's just telling you matter of fact what he thinks.
Right.
And you want to hear from different people's point of views. I've always loved what other people's passions were. I'm interested by it. And some people are customizers, some people are toy photographers. We do that with the toy mercs. And they're a community of toy photographers and some awesome toy photographers.
Yeah.
And that was something that piqued my curiosity in it. And I was like, okay, well, I see the things that they're doing. How do we transition into that and also find that other point is in because a lot of times, we have our characters on the shelves and stuff. What are we doing after that?
Right.
Sit on the shelf, dust them off, you know? It's the point of taking them outside and snapping a photo with them, doing something, creating a pose with it. It kind of gets a little fun. So they kind of inspired that too. So there's a lot of things with the network of people that we deal with that actually inspires our work when we're online. And same thing, like you and I've talked, and it's I I love that n- people don't step on one another's toes. Everybody's complimentary to one another, and
Right.
that's the way it should be. You want to see people succeed.
Yeah, I have no desire to see anybody else go down
Yeah,
unless they're assholes. If they're assholes and they're condescending and
yeah,
self-serving or what have you, then I think that you deserve that. But
hmm
if you're down to be in a community and work in the community and help the community,
hmm
then that's like I've told everybody all over and whenever I talk about it, I don't choose a left or right or middle side of
hmm
any type of argument. I'm all for equal rights. I think that we should all be the same one way or another
hmm
because all of our journeys are different to get to that path, but that path
exactly.
and that goal is what's going to make us stronger along the way. And if we can do it together, then that's just going to make us stronger as a community, as a group, as a people, you
Absolutely.
know? And that's just my belief system, whether it
Yeah,
be left, right, whatever, I don't care. And it's the same with the comic community or this community or the podcast
absolutely.
community.
hmm
You know what I mean? If I know some secrets or I know some tricks, I'm gonna
Yeah,
let you know.
yeah,
If you know some, you're gonna let me know, vice versa. And we're just all here to pump each other up at the end of the day because
it-
even if you did have a wrestling podcast, I'm sure
well, of
it
course.
would be totally different than what we would be talking about,
Exactly.
you know?
But it helps you explore the thing, and then there's nothing like when you're at an event and, like, you see everyone together,
Right.
and you still that point of community. Everyone wants to belong to something, and if you can do something that's positive and it gives people good assurance, then, it's like, that's what we all wanna be a part of.
Nobody wants to go to a convention by themselves and leave by themselves. I
Exactly.
promise you that. Like, you wanna
Yeah.
go to a convention and see recognizable faces, see
Yes.
people that you know,
Mhm.
especially if you're like myself. I have social anxiety disorder, and
Mhm.
I'm agoraphobic. I hate crowds, I hate people, but I go because I love the environment. I force
Mhm.
myself to go because I love the random conversations you get into with that guy next to you.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
like, "Oh, man, I love this issue of Spider-Man." "Oh, so do I," and stuff like that. Because you just meet somebody you meet people that are so like you,
Yeah.
and just like you, are afraid to say so. That you kinda need that icebreaker, you know what I mean? And having the podcast and having a community of people are
Yeah.
a great way to dispel that insecurity that you have within you. 'Cause I know I can come up to your booth at any time and just BS with you, or watch you guys BSing on the show and be
Exactly.
comfortable with it, you know what I mean? And then anybody else watching, I can sit there and talk to the audience and be comfortable with them too. Like, it's
Yeah.
just how it is.
I think for one of my oldest childhood friends, and we're still friends today, we met at a comic book store in like an art contest. And we were both artists. And it was nice to have somebody that had your same kind of passion or energy with it. And
Mhm.
now that I see the same thing in podcasting and pop culture and all the rest of the things, it's like it's nice that when you go to conventions, you see, the people that like in a minute, just a smile that instantly hits your face. You're
Right,
like, "What's going on, man?" And we had the opportunity, you and I, to go out to the Starlight Digest, their trivia night for Star Wars Day.
right,
And it's like those is what makes the events because sometimes you're right, it's hard to find a place that you fit in, but if you find it in a circle, it makes life so much more better for you, you know?
right. It's just more places to feel comfortable outside of your house.
Exactly. And
And
now you need that more than ever, man.
yeah, more than ever now because it's
Mhm.
everybody's grouping up and clicking up. It just feels
Yeah.
like one way or another, you're gonna have a fight when you leave the house, whether you're
E
looking for it or not.
exactly,
You're gonna
exactly.
get into some sort of argument, and yeah, it's
But I
unnecessary.
I tend to think that people in the pop culture industry, whether it's toys, it's comics, it's video games or whatever, there has always been an open door policy no matter what you look like, no matter what, your shape, form, or gender or whatever, that's always been open for you.
Unless
And,
you're a pedophile, yes.
Uh, well, yeah, you gotta watch those guys, but I've seen plenty of those guys at some of those comic conventions, not the toy ones yet, but the comic conventions back in the day, there was a couple of guys that was
Oh, they're
right on the
always
line.
there's always
There's
everywhere. Like, yeah,
there's a couple of times where you're like,
like you
"Oh."
should have stayed in the basement, brother.
Yeah, yeah. Like, we don't wanna reach out to that community, but, you know, but the other
Well, unless
people,
they
like
can order from home.
exactly. No, you run your pod stay at the house, run your podcast, to do other stuff there, don't go
No,
out
no,
in
no, no, no.
public.
I will sign things here and mail them to you. Like,
Yeah, yeah, don't
don't
wanna
ever
see
come to
you
my
out.
booth.
Yeah, don't wanna see you out. There's been some weird you and I both come from the comic industry, and I gotta tell you, toys, I have rarely seen anything crazy in the toy community. I've gone and it's been sort of cosplay or something was used to, kinda hard to get used to in the beginning, but now
Right.
it's kinda commonplace. But comic conventions, there has been some stuff that will blow your mind. We can't even talk about this kind of stuff. It's one of those things you have to just lock in your soul and make sure it's never. But I've seen some things in some comic conventions that no one under the age of 21 should ever see.
You'd be amazed at how quickly a person can walk into a hotel room and have that hotel room turn from a
Yeah.
hotel room into something you never wanted to walk into ever, ever, ever
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Like that room suddenly becomes, I don't know, an extension of their house. Like, how did they move their house into this hotel in 5 minutes? How did that happen? It is suddenly dark and smoky. There's aluminum foil patches all over the place.
I've seen some now, Hollywood, there's a lot of, NDAs that I've signed that I get to specify for that. No Diddy stuff though, but, uh, but but there's been some crap that's been close.
When you go
But
sliding down the hallway at the hotel room,
yeah,
you're like, "Someone
exactly.
stop me."
Yeah, like I said again, if I ever see like a tractor trailer with it says Johnson& and Johnson sign, that's when I know to get out of that party. That's when you casually hit the door. "All right, guys, I'm gone." But just
There ain't
like
a
the Hollywood
single
party.
piece of ash in this room. I gots to go.
I've seen some Hollywood parties, but I've seen some comic book parties that resemble those. Never in toys, though. I've been to and where there's an honesty level too. I think I was talking to Joel about this. Every time we go to an event, you always see somebody picks up a grill, right? And
Mhm.
it's like something where it's USS flag or something else like that. And I said the difference between that and the like, let's say the sneaker community is somebody will say, "Hey man, do you need help to your car?" And they'll help you carry out the flag, put it in the back of your car, close it. That guy goes back in the convention, buys some other stuff, and nothing happens to his car.
Right,
In the sneaker community, there's a guy with two armed security guards and a briefcase, handcuffed to his arm, and he's
right,
praying that that's enough to get him to his car, to his hotel. That's
right.
the difference between the two communities, man.
And then they check in to make sure nobody's following them.
Exactly, exactly. But you could have grails plenty in toys, and somebody's like, "Yeah, man, let me get you to the car and everything," and there's not a malicious intent in that.
I have gotten in bloody knockdown fights over my shoes.
Yo,
I have
yes,
never,
yeah,
ever had to worry about my life being threatened over a toy or a
never
comic.
once, never,
No,
never.
ever. And
That's
I
the
grew
thing that
up
makes
I
the
grew up in
community better.
Rialto, okay, the gangland where they they would shoot you for your shoes. Like, I'm
Nope.
not, no joke.
Yep.
They
Nope.
would shoot you for the color of your shoes, and
Yep.
I've gotten into, like, serious fights up for my life to keep my shoes on, my BK Knights and my fucking Jordans, alright? Just
Mhm.
because, we had Crips and Bloods out there. If you wore the wrong color shoe, you were going down.
Yep.
Never
Absolutely.
because of my Transformer. My Optimus Prime was red.
Like,
Nobody cared. You
that's a
know?
single point, man. That's a good thing about that community is that there are just so many generally good individuals that you meet, and it's life impacting, man. It's just that's what I enjoy about it. It's the sense of community,
Yeah.
and it's nice to be in some place where people appreciate. I've got more people that come up, and I'm sure the same thing happens to you. Hey, man, I love your work, man. I enjoyed the show or something. That's what it's for. It's not for your own sense of let me overinflate my ego and we do this. No, it's for everybody comes in. Did I give in half an hour, 45 minutes to 2 hours that you enjoyed and was entertaining? Because you don't have to watch me. You know,
Right.
that's what makes it cool, man.
There was one year at Free Comic Book Day. I'm sitting there. It was me, Richard, Daniel, and and Joey, the guys that I do the panel cast with.
Hmm,
And
hmm.
we're sitting there, and this guy walks up, and he's like, him and his friend. He's like, "Oh, dude, cool!" And he grabs his friend, and he brings him over to our booth. He's like, "These are the
Hmm,
guys that do this, this, this. I have this comic book and blah blah blah." And he's like, "Oh," and he starts telling them about our posters. And
hmm.
'cause we used to put out a Free Comic Book Day poster called "The 5 Steps to Identify Zombie," and
Okay.
it was like, are they dead? Are they alive? Do they smell? Do they have flies? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but every year we put out a different variation of that poster to
Hmm.
make them collectible and so that people can have them. So this
Yeah.
guy had all the whole collection, everything. Every year would come up and get us. And that year we just happened to have a new book, and he wanted the new book, but he couldn't afford it. But he was wearing a Five Finger Death Punch shirt. So I said, "I tell you
Hmm.
what, I'll trade you your shirt for my book."
Hmm.
He said, "Okay." Took off his shirt, gave me his shirt. I gave him a comic book, and then I sold him one of our T-shirts to wear on the way out.
Yeah.
And but the fact that he did that for our book, something I
Exactly.
wrote and
Yeah.
created, you know what I mean? I was like, he gave me the shirt off his back.
There you go.
And there's a line of 5,000 people behind him, and this man
Yeah.
just like, I was like, "Okay, dude, that was a moment that I will never forget." I took pictures of it, a video, the whole 9.
Hmm.
Like, you know, it wasn't
Yeah.
as cool as a little kid coming up to me in my 2nd year and quoting my
Mm.
entire book to me.
Yeah.
That was a moment that I'll never forget. But yeah, I hear what you're saying in that,
Yeah. Well, I'm starting to see that a little bit more too. I think that's what I like about everybody says like things are dying with us. Comics, they've got to do a little bit of work. They've really got to start picking it up and bringing the hearts and getting the kids back into it. But whenever I'm at a toy convention and I see like the little guys and
Mhm.
they're like, wow, and it's like the joy in their eyes, man, and it makes you still feel like a kid because of their enthusiasm with it. And it's like, yeah, it's like this is what it's for, man. It's like, can you pass that joy on to somebody else? And if you've done it right, then they'll be able to pass it on to someone else as well. And
Absolutely.
and they feel like, man, I'm supposed to be here. I was in Toy Atlanta, and we were with David Vonner had a pretty big panel, and a lot of people don't know that he's the father of Marvel Legends, and we just been blessed to have that exclusive information for the longest. And there was a young teenager that came in. He was like, "Yeah, I just saw this and I was coming in." And I was like, "Well, hey man, do you know who David Vonner is?" And he goes, "No, man, he created Marvel Legends." "Oh man, I collect that line." And he was shocked that David Vonner looked like him. And he was like, "Wow, man." And he came back the next 2 days at a convention. And, David, for the person that he is, I will give him credit on this, is that there are people that you meet that are ambassadors of the industry,
Mhm.
and, then there's people that you meet and you'll be like, "I don't wanna be a part of this community at all. I wish."
Right.
David's one of those guys, he took time with that young man, and I was like, that is probably someone that's gonna purchase, like, toys for the rest of his life due to that interaction.
Right.
That's what you get away with when you go to these events and everything else. That sense of community is just wonderful, bro.
Yeah, especially if you're getting recognized sometimes.
It
That's
is.
what I loved about the smaller shows is because 'cause they're so intimate.
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
know, you actually get to go to an artist alley that meant something
Yes.
and have a conversation with an artist that matters to you,
Mhm.
that, you know, you idolize and you loved, and then meet other artists that discover other artists that you're like, "Why aren't you doing more? Why aren't you in Marvel? Why aren't you in
Mhm.
DC? You know, why aren't
Yeah.
you in Image?" When you realize, and that's when you realize indie comic book creators are, in my opinion, and I'm not just saying this because I'm an indie comic book creator.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. Are like we're the bread and butter of this community. Like we're where we are where the McFarlanes, the Eastmans, the
Mhm.
and where everybody comes from, you know, because we even Bendis started with his little
Yep.
uh, Criminal Macabre, I think it was called back in the day,
No,
or Criminal, and that grew
I
into Powers, and you know, I went from there. You know, everybody had their little indie comic book company that they
mhm,
started off
mhm.
with, and it grew from somebody. So to discover other people out there like General Joshua, he's killing it right now
Oh, yeah,
with
yeah,
uh,
yeah. Mhm.
with his stuff
Also,
that he's
his
doing.
event too is fantastic as well,
His
you know?
events are awesome too. Like he's
Yeah.
kicking some ass out there, and I'm giving
Yeah,
him free
yeah.
press. General Joshua, my name is AJ at Forbidden Panel. You better hit me up.
Nerds and hip hop, actually, I can get you I would talk to him and have him actually hit you up, man.
I have his book. I've met him many
Yeah,
times. He's a
because
really cool guy.
we had him over on the show, and he was like, "Hey, man, I do this mini con idea." And we're like, "Mm, alright, what's a mini con?" And then you go to it and like, this is a great community-based event.
Yeah.
And it was just completely different, man, and it's like, "Alright, this kind of stuff I like to see, man."
Yeah, yeah, he recently just put on an event. He puts on events in random little places, like he put one
Mhm.
on at the Moreno Valley Mall, where he had, of all people, Joel DJing
Yep,
for him the entire
mhm,
day,
mhm,
working the crowd. See, that's what
yep.
good Joel is.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
He's good people. That's why I roped him in and put a Forbidden Panel banner on Joel.
That's what, if he's not up there,
Trademarked. Bam.
promoting, yeah, if he's not out there promoting, what's he doing, man?
Right. That's why I grabbed him. I'm like, well, you obviously can't promote yourself. I'll take care of it for you.
I got you. I got you. It'd be like NASCAR, we just start putting, like, logos and everything on them so
That's
you can
right. Joel's just gonna
start
be a
bidding for
walking
the
logo
space.
from now on. You're gonna be walking around with Pepsi, and they're gonna be like, yeah, why not?
Yeah, yeah, hey, if they're paying.
Right? He's like Mystery Man. He's like Greg Gilborn
Uh-huh.
and Mystery Man. There
Yep,
you
yep.
go.
Nothing wrong with sponsorship. We'll put them on people,
Yep.
T-shirts, even DJs. We got space. Don't worry.
Whatever you got, we got room to advertise.
But yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think it is. Once you see the Mike Mignolas of the world, and it's like you see the joy and passion when they're doing their own thing. Hellboy's bigger than anything that he's worked on, and it was just one of those things where the rest of the guys were like, "Hey, man, you want to do something?" And he was like, "Okay."
Right?
I love the fact is that their creativity sometimes, and I like the fact that you go to the bigger companies and they get the exposure, but they somehow filter their way back
Right.
to doing the smaller books because that's the thing they have the most joy with, the most control. And you're right. I used to love when I used to go to conventions and someone would take the time and be like, all right, I was an artist when I was younger. Hey, let me show you a couple of key things right here. And the smaller shows still do that. There's an
Yeah.
artist, Jamie Sullivan, and every time I see him, he's such a gracious individual, and he makes you want to come back to events because he is such a decent person.
Right.
And then I've seen the bigger shows and the guys that gotten a little bigger egos, and you're like, wow. It's like, man, it's like, you were here at one point. You
Right.
can't forget about where you are because it's the people that build you into that.
Can't believe where you can't forget where you're coming from, man. That's just
Absolutely.
all there is to it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's like Richard and I had this philosophy
Uh,
where look, if I come to your booth and you can sell me with passion on your story,
yeah.
I'm gonna get your book.
Hmm.
But if you can't do that, if you're too tired, you're too burnt out, you know, whatever the excuse is, if you have no
Hmm.
love for your own story, then how can you expect me to?
Yeah, you got to be your
You
own hype
know?
man. If you can't push it to me, who else is gonna?
Right. And there'll be plenty of times when I go up there and I'll find an individual that just maybe they've had a bad day or maybe things are going
Yeah, of course.
slow
Hmm.
and maybe they just have the energy drawn out of them and I'll just conversate with them. And if we can have build a good rapport in the conversation and stuff, then I'll say, you know what, I'll check out your book. Sure, why not?
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I got one. It's a Sasquatch astronaut. Because
Yeah,
it's
I
the
like the
most
title, man.
ridiculous fucking thing I've ever heard in my life, right? Sasquatch, you look at the smile
Yeah,
on your face just from
yeah,
you
yeah,
have
yeah.
to buy it, right?
Yeah, you
You
do.
have
It begs for that. It begs for that. The title alone begs for it.
okay. I heard about that. I was like, what? Oh, I
Uh,
gotta go. And I saw the artwork and I met the guy. He was cool. The art was
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
The book was it was a trade, so it was $25. I was like, yeah,
Okay.
sure, man.
Uh,
$25 for Sasquatch astronaut. I'm down. Let's go.
let, let me tell you something. Hold on to that book because that's probably going to be on a Cartoon Network or Amazon or something. Because a title like that, some executives like, okay, we got to do this.
It's the new Wildcats, man. I'm telling you right now.
Oh, I'm telling. Let me tell you something. There's probably going to be some David. Are you listening? There needs to be an action figure for Sasquatch astronaut, bro.
But you know what? That brings us to the 45-minute period.
Yes, sir.
I think that's a good place for us to take a stop. We still have another interview I got coming in later.
Okay.
Craig Vendeville's coming in. He's a good friend of mine, and he went to the Skateboard Hall of Fame induction ceremony. He's going to
Oh,
have a whole bunch of footage for us, and
okay.
he got to talk to a lot of people. So we're going to go ahead and use this opportunity to say goodbye to Alex. Thank you, Alex, so much for joining us.
Hey, man, thanks for
Um,
having me, man. Wonderful time, man. Anytime you want me to come back, just ask, brother. I'll be here.
Alex, where can we find you? I know you're going to be at Robo Toy Fest coming up
We will
soon. Where
be
else? Talk
June
to us
8th.
about what your road schedule looks like.
Yeah, June 8th, we're going to be over at the Robo Toy Show. Come on by to see us. It's going to be SKN, Odd Frog, and then one of our newest affiliate sponsors, Holy Grail Toys, is going to do their debut at that show. So they're a place that if you're in the community and you want that StockX kind of feel, they have that same philosophy piped in. But they say that everybody has a grail. You can find yours on Holy Grail Toys. And they're holding up to that philosophy. They really kind of sold us on what they were doing, and they're from the community. They have an executive board, and David Vonner is on their board, along with several other actual toy manufacturers. So they keep themselves in check, man. They don't want to do anything. They don't want to harm the industry. They want to uplift it. So you can check them out, and their site's live. But you can catch us again on over the Shadowe Knows Network SKN again, Wednesdays and Fridays, and join the chat. Come in and just be you. We love to see what everyone's opinions are, and good or bad, we want it all.
You got yourself a whole block on Wednesdays, right?
Yeah, there is actually. There's we start off the night at 6 p.m. Pacific time with the toy mercs. So if you're into toy photography, joy toys, some of those little lines that a lot of people aren't into but photograph well, then you want to listen to Toy Mercs at 6 o'clock. Come over to the SKN network at 7, and that's Toy Box Chronicles, myself and Chet Maddox. And then stay for the Sarlacc Digest podcast on there. You want to talk about Star Wars? Those guys know Star Wars forward and front, man. We lost the trivia contest, so damn straight they know it.
It
And
was
the
all
best
my
thing,
fault. I'm sorry. I didn't know how many horns Maul had. I
you know what?
slipped.
That was technically Dr. Bentley's fault because he was supposed to show up and he got tired. He said, "I'm not showing up." He knew that answer, and I said, "I knew
Mhm.
that was going to happen." And he didn't show up, so he caused a surprise, AJ. But the best thing about it too is that there's push notifications. So if you're watching Toymarks, it'll push you into Toy Box Chronicles. If you're watching Toy Box Chronicles, it will push you into Sarlacc Digest. So all you got to do is just watch, and you're going with the flow that night, man.
That's awesome. That's a good block to have. And
Yeah.
again, if you're like we are, and you're not one of those people that can sit there and solely watch a podcast, and that's all you can do, it's
Yep.
great to have on while you're working on other projects.
Absolutely.
I'll have it on while I'm working on editing or photo editing or even doing some Transformer stuff. I'll have it on in the background, and it's good. Uh, Plus, the chat rooms that they have going on there,
That's
it's
wild.
fun. I
Mhm.
like to drop in every now and then and drop a good funny line, but I fail
You've done that
sometimes.
numerous times, man, and actually, you have people in tears on some of your chats, man. It's
I
far
don't
appreciative.
know. That's why I like to keep my bitches buck toothed.
Yeah, that's how I
Is
refer
my
to that.
famous line from there.
Yeah. The guys were unprepared for that, I'll tell you
I was unprepared for that. I don't. I like that came out of nowhere, and I was laughing while I was typing it.
Now,
Um,
if a comedian use that line, we're gonna have to start talking about some court cases here.
so I'll give you my lawyer's number. I'm sure she'll enjoy
W
it.
we had to stop and stop at the sits for anybody else. We know where that originates from.
Right. But yeah, guys, if you have a chance, head over to the SKN network, especially on Wednesdays. They have a great blog podcast. And then on Friday night, like you said, it's at 7 p.m. Pacific time.
7 PM Pacific time, sir. Yes, sir.
Head back over to the Shadowe Knows Network so you can watch their Pixels
Plastic and ink.
and Ink. Okay, I always get them mixed up because I want to say Pixies, but
Yeah, well,
that's
there might
that's
be a
what.
show in that. Might have to
Yeah,
think about
well, there you go. There you go.
that.
So again, thank you, Alex, for being on the show. We're gonna go ahead and take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be here with Craig. So, all right, guys, be back in a minute.
What's up, nerds? Scott Solo from the Sarlacc Digest podcast, and you are listening to my pal, my buddy AJ from the Forbidden Panel. At least I think he's my friend. Sometimes he's my enemy. Sometimes he's my arch nemesis. Anyway, enjoy the show and keep it nerdy.
And we're back to the PanelCast. That's right. It has been a minute. Took a break, came back, and I found this guy. I don't remember his name.
I'm Craig.
I don't believe you.
Craig Vendeville.
I don't know.
I've known AJ for quite a while.
He lies a lot. That's one thing I've learned about him in the past 3 minutes of knowing him. So he lies a lot. No, Craig Vendeville. You've seen his wife on the show, on the website. Craig sometimes acts as a roving reporter for us, as occasional ZKS member, occasional best man at a wedding, whatever we need from Craig. He just shows up and fills in.
I'm the gopher.
Yeah,
wherever you need me.
And he did such a wonderful job this weekend. Tell us about your adventures this past week.
Well, this past weekend, Friday, November, May 30th. Yeah, Friday, May 30th, I went to the 2025 induction of the Skateboard Hall of Fame at the Vans headquarters in Costa Mesa, California.
And how was that?
It was pretty awesome. It was the biggest event that they've had to date, with over 700 people showing up for the event. And I think it was close to 25 inductees into the Hall of Fame for this year for 2025. Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it was a long night. It started at doors opened at 5. The actual induction started at 7 o'clock that night, and it ended at like 11. So it was a good 4 hours of awards.
Who were some of the people that were getting inducted?
Probably the most famous one that people are going to recognize, even if they're not into skateboarding, would probably be Bucky Lasek. He's from the late 80s, all through the 90s, even the early 2000s. He was kind of joked around as being second fiddle to Tony Hawk for years. Tony Hawk would get first, Bucky would get second. He skated for Powell Peralta, Birdhouse, which is Tony Hawk's company, and a smattering of others. I left skateboarding for a while, so I'm not really sure where he went in between those. He's back to Powell Peralta, and now he actually races rally cars for Subaru. And he's still a professional skateboarder at like 52 years old. He's still one of the top pros. He could still compete against the young guys today.
That's why we don't like him.
He's nice as can be. I've met him a couple of times, but he's, retired teenager. He's never going to grow up like the rest of us.
Right. We're all the same way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he'd be the most probably the most famous one that people outside of the skateboarding world may have heard of.
But who all was there?
Oh, who all was there? Let's see. Tony Hawk did show up. He was there, which is really out of the ordinary because he doesn't go to a lot of these events. He's usually so busy with his foundation and doing speeches and other things that he hardly ever goes out to actual skateboarding events like this because he's always booked up. Tony Hawk was there. A lot of the pros and former inductees like Tony Alva, Lords of Dogtown, if anybody's seen that, he was there. Let's see, Lester Kasai, Christian Asoy is another one that people have heard of. He was the MC for the night. There was Chris Pastras, who is the founding member of Stereo Skateboards, who he founded Stereo with Jason Lee. For those who know acting in movies, Jason Lee was a founding member of Stereo Skateboards. He was not there. Let's see, Matt Hensley, former pro for H Street and the accordion player for Flogging Molly, was there. Got to chat with him for a minute or two. Let's see. Lonnie Hiramoto was there. Mike McGill, Lance Mountain, Steve Caballero. Geez, there were so many people there. I'm trying to remember who it was. The Vans, the queen of Vans right now, Vans' darling Lizzie Amarento. I can't remember how to spell her or pronounce her last name. She was there wandering around. Grayson Fletcher, who is the mad caveman of skateboarding right now, he was there. What's his name? Steve Bertelman, a guy who invented a trick that basically turned skateboarding on its head in the late 70s, which led to everything else that skateboarding is now.
The boneless, the ollie,
the Bertelman slide, where everybody's kind of doing that, wiggling around on the ground. They go up a bank and then they put their hand down and just kind of carve it out like a wave, like surfing,
right?
Which is what he is as a surfer more than a skateboarder.
Yeah, we usually just call it carving.
Yeah, but he would do that where he's on the ground and he whips it around, and that's what started everything, really. I mean, more so from the before the boneless, before the ollie. That was pretty much the beginning of, we can do tricks, we can be creative. There's an art to it, there's a style. So I would say that was the one guy I was excited to see, and then listening to other people milling around talking about it, everybody was hyped to see Bertel, because that's really where the birth of modern skateboarding came from.
In case you're wondering why we're covering this on the show, I'm an old school skater. Been skating since I was 6 years old. I had to stop because my body hates me. He's an old school skater, but his body doesn't hate him as much as mine does, so he's still able to do it.
I can still fall and take several weeks to recover and then be okay.
Right. I looked at my skateboard yesterday. I'm still in pain.
Yeah, it's
it's sad because I want to get on my board a lot, especially recently, just with the way I've been feeling and stuff. I just want to get on a board and just move and just feel that freedom and that air rushing through me again. That controlled fear that you get when you're skateboarding.
Oh, it definitely hurts so much more now than it did before.
Oh, I'm sure. But a lot of the times, until my body officially quit, Craig and I would go out and train skate and get some sessions in, some sessions. And then I was recently going down with Craig down to the skate parks and watching him skate, still carving up the bowl and stuff. So the fact that he got to go to this and enjoy it and participate in it is, I'm a little jealous and envious of him.
Well, you'll have to come next year because they're going to do it again. There's no plans on not doing the award show, and Vans is pretty much the official site for it. So they'll do it again next year for 2026. I'm curious to see who they're going to get, because they're kind of moving out of my era and getting the people I've never heard of in like the
2000 era,
late 90s and 2000 era. They're weeding out even the older crowd. They had several different sections or parts, I guess you would say. There was the 60s, which they had all together as one, just because there's not as much information from back then. And then
old school polyurethane boards,
even before that, when it was
the
still
nipple
wood
boards and stuff,
and clay wheels. I did get to hang out and talk with a former inductee, trying to remember her name right now, Lori Turner DeMont. She got inducted into the Hall of Fame in, I think, 2019, 2021, something like that, for her time in the 60s. She was one of the original Hobie teammates, where they had the shiny polyester jackets and short shorts, and they would go around the country to
like the solid gold dancers.
Yeah, exactly. With, the striped tube socks up to your knees and all of,
slutty chola.
And so they would travel the country showing off everything that they knew how to do on skateboards. And that was really cool, hanging out and talking with her and her husband for a few minutes. I think his name was John. I'm trying to remember.
They're all Johns.
Yeah. I'm old, so memory isn't quite there. And it was kind of the funny thing about talking with her is how absolutely protective and my era was better than everybody else's era. That goes through with everybody that you talk to. It's like, my era was the best. And she was there for a couple of the brothers, two brothers that were getting inducted. I can't remember their names right offhand. That was during her time in the 60s. And so she was like, I'm only here to see them, and everybody else can suck it, basically, because the 60s era was the best era and every other era sucked after that. So it was fun talking with her.
Well, it's surprising that she could remember the 60s.
Oh, there was no cognitive decline there. She was pretty sharp, having her little glass of wine and, ready to go. But yeah, you see some of the people that were, they're walking around with their crutches and their canes, and a couple of people in wheelchairs. And it's like, skateboarding is not easy on the body. It is a hard sport, activity, whatever you want to call it.
Especially on the knees and the head.
Especially, I've gotten more hurt now in my 50s than I did younger. Both my rotator cuffs are jacked up. I've got bigger scars on my legs, and I'm sore every morning. I wake up and heating pad for an hour before I can even move.
I was say, how do your shins handle it?
Well, luckily, I can't skate street much. My joints just don't like the impact. So I'm skating a lot of transition pools, the Vans Vert ramp in Huntington Beach, the Grosso ramp there. So I'm all padded up, helmet, wrist guards, elbows, knees. So I don't get a pretty, if I could, yeah. So my shins really, well.
So what's the latest?
The latest one is this one here.
Does this hurt?
No, it's fine now. But and then I almost had to get stitches a couple of months ago and on the other shin from skating a bowl. But I'm not taking the impacts that I would if I was street skating.
I don't blame you. And unfortunately for me, that's all I did was back in the day was street skate. So going back is like,
dude, ollies at this age are so freaking scary.
So I'm sure.
The thing
moving fast is scary.
All the things I never thought I would ever have to even think about. Some of the the standard tricks of just rolling down the street and ollieing up a curb on the sidewalk was like breathing. I didn't even have to have my eyes open. I could do it. And now it's like I can't. It's like I get that high and I fall.
We are not purposely making fun of anybody with mental or physical disabilities. Please forgive Craig for his dorkiness.
Yes,
but
I'm a dork.
To be fair, he's also one of those people. So he's allowed to speak about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife would attest.
Loudly.
Yes. To anybody who will listen. But yeah, let's see.
What was the overall vibe there like?
The overall vibe was very much just an excited buzz of we can't wait to see them and accept their trophies.
Were there any demos going on?
No, there was no skating at all. Well, Tony Alva was kind of rolling around on one of his big, gigantic boards and doing some stuff, but it wasn't like a demo or anything like that. He was
Okay.
just kind of rolling around, trying to get photo ops and whatnot.
Trying to stay relevant.
Which he doesn't need to try to. He's like the godfather of
Right.
skateboarding for most people. So he's always swamped with people wanting his autograph. There's always people milling around with boards to get signatures on. So, he's a spokesperson for Vans. He does a lot of events for them anyway. So he doesn't need to worry about not being relevant at all. He is skateboarding. There's a few names, Tony Hawk, Tony Alva, Steve Caballero, Christian Desoy. They are skateboarding.
Right.
They don't need to worry about whether or not they're still hip to people, because those are just names that every skateboarder knows. Even if they don't know who they are, they know those names.
Even Mike Vallely is still finding his way in the news somehow.
Oh, yeah. He's got his band back, Mike V and the Rats, because Black Flag decided to fire everybody apparently and start a whole new lineup. So
anyway, so the event is annual. What year was this one?
This was the induction. This was 2025 for everybody in 2024. Apparently, I don't know how.
Right, but I mean, how many years has this been going on?
Oh, it's been going on for, I think, since 2009.
Okay.
So 16 years.
Yeah,
is how long they've been doing the Hall of Fame. There is the Skateboarding Hall of Fame Museum, which is in Simi Valley, which seems like an odd place to have it, but that's where Todd Huber, the guy who runs it, that's where he lives, and that's where they can get an affordable space for it. Because, as whatever you think of skateboarding, there is no money in skateboarding. Professional skaters all have 1 to 2, 3 other jobs to support themselves. They don't make money from skateboarding unless you have a energy drink deal from Monster, sponsorship from Monster or Red Bull, or you have a shoe sponsor like Nike, or some of these other companies like Nike and New Balance
or Etnies.
Even the skate companies like Etnies and Vans. That's great, but you're still working 2, 3 other jobs. Everybody's hustling.
That's why you always see Tony Hawk stuff for sale everywhere. I don't mean his stuff. I mean, like, you see him in movies, you see him on advertising and commercials, you see him at award shows, also because he's getting paid to show up there, and that's money.
Yeah.
There was a time where Tony Hawk had to go broke and claim bankruptcy and didn't know how he was going to feed his family in the middle of Tony Hawk hype, where it was right before the Tony Hawk video games came out.
Doing birthdays for $350 just so he can,
pay off his bills and feed his family.
Yeah, make his mortgage. So he's, out of all the skaters, he's doing fine because of his video game and his video game series.
And his kids and Birdhouse.
So he's doing pretty good. But other skaters, they're not all that, as he would say, lucky and fortunate. He came along at the right place at the right time. And he's gone through the ups and downs and has pretty much stayed the course.
Right.
Others that have stayed the course are Steve Caballero, Lance Mountain, but to a much lesser degree. Being part of the Bones Brigade in the 80s and early 90s made them household names, worldwide. And then skateboarding dipped like it did in the late 70s, and there was no money. I mean, these guys were all of a sudden, you're sponsored, but we can't pay you anything. So they're getting jobs at McDonald's just to sell fries and, take care of their families. And even today, I asked a couple of people I've skated with at Vans, and they're like, we don't get paid we're pros, but we don't get paid unless we're winning contests, which isn't a lot because there's so many contests that
It's hard to, yeah.
Yeah.
Back in the day when the contests were rare and thus paid you well,
Yeah.
If you didn't use that money to travel to another contest, then you're doing okay. But back in the day, sponsorship from a skating company meant at least 2 decks, maybe 3 decks for you to skate on. That was theirs, and some hardware.
Yeah, you're basically on the flow team. They're just flowing you stuff. You're not getting paid.
Right.
And if you were getting paid, it's because you were on the way upper echelon, but you weren't getting paid a lot.
But back in the day, I don't know about you, but for me, getting free skateboards and free stuff was all I really wanted. Anyway.
Dude, even
So-
today, I would be happy with
Right.
that.
I got sponsored by a couple of shops, and that's what all I would get were free T-shirts and free boards, and that was fine with me because that kept me clothed and skating. And so yeah, we do a couple of competitions out the parking lot, but nothing too crazy. We weren't making the big money or anything like that.
And honestly, one of the reasons why there's no money in skateboarding now is because everybody has started their own skateboarding company.
Right.
The market is so flooded that there is no money. Like everybody, being a pro used to mean something. You would win contests. You would have an actual video part, not like a 30-second Instagram spot. You would actually, go to contests, travel, and that's how you became a pro. And then you had a pro model skateboard, and you would get a cut of every one of your boards that sold.
Right.
They don't have that nowadays. There's next to no pro models, but it is starting to slowly kind of come back. Skateboarding's in another up cycle. So being a pro might actually mean something again for these guys. Because again, like I said, there's pros out there that are, one day away from homelessness, and they're, worldwide pros. They travel all over the world for contests, and they make just enough money to go to the next contest sometimes, if their sponsors don't pay for hotels and flights. So it's not an easy business to be into. If you're a skater, it's because you love skating and not because you're going to be
Somebody.
Even with it's now that it's in the Olympics, though, there are soccer moms that are now skateboard moms. And kids, they're getting their kids into skateboarding because it's just another gear sport like baseball or soccer or something like that.
Skateboarding used to always be an individual sport and a place for you to just shut your mind off.
Yeah.
Focus on something else for a minute.
Yeah. Express yourself.
Yeah.
And now it's like I go to this again, Vans is where I've been going lately just because luckily I've been working in the area, so I stopped by there. There's kids there at 11 o'clock in the morning, every day, with one of their parents watching them skate all day long. I'm assuming they're homeschooled kids. And it's like, their baseball camp or whatever that's what they do now. So I don't know. Yeah. So a lot of it doesn't feel like there's a love for it with some of these kids. It's rad and it's cool, but do they actually like doing it? It feels like baseball. Everybody does. So yeah, the state of skateboarding is kind of in a weird spot right now, and I'm very conflicted on. I love that I see it everywhere, but at the same time, really?
Well, I mean, it's just the same with video games, Transformers, comic books, all this stuff. Like everything we grew up with in our time period, they made us feel like individuals and made us feel like a way of expressing ourselves. Like these stories mean something, and doing this means something to me. It touched me in these ways. Blah blah blah. Are now so popular and so oversaturated that it feels like we don't have an identity anymore.
Yeah,
that we can relate to.
Yeah,
because everything that we like is so popular, so inundated in lifestyles now that it's just like, and it's like the Jetsons. If we were the Jetsons living in the future, we wouldn't care about all the futuristic stuff.
Yeah,
because that's what we'd be living with.
Yeah, there's the specialness of it has tarnished a little bit.
So it's like, oh, everybody can slide now. Everybody can ollie. Everybody can do this now. Great. Everybody's got a TikTok. Yeah.
There was a pro skater by the name of Neil Blender who invented a trick called the Good Buddy or something like that. And it was a trick that he could not do. He invented it and told people, and he drew it out, like actually sketched it out like a storyboard. Other people saw it, and the next day everybody was doing it. And so now he was like, I don't even want to do that trick.
Right.
Everybody does that trick. It's the everybody is what it actually turned into. And it's basically, I think it's a front side fakie invert hand plant, something like that. And so he never even did the trick because everybody did it. He no longer wanted to do it. And,
Well, it's like the not a spin.
mm-hmm.
Everybody's doing it now. I've seen like videos where 10 people will sit at a fire hydrant.
Yeah, that was part of a demo contest.
Yeah, and trying to do the not a spin on it. And I'm like,
yeah, because there's a pro out there now called Andy Anderson who loves the 80s, loves them. So he did a video part not too long ago. It was earlier this year or late last year, where basically everything he did was an homage to who actually invented it. He put his own little spin on it,
mm-hmm.
but he had in credits for his video, the end credits were longer than the video itself because he named everybody. Even Tony Hawk didn't know who did it. He's got all of this there. So there's some of the homage and the respect of what came before is coming back. People are learning their history. And that was one of the cool things about the Hall of Fame inductions was listening to some of the speeches. One of my favorite speeches was by a guy named Freddie DeSoto. He was in the 80s. He was a pro, one of the few black guys
mm-hmm.
who was a pro. And he told a story about going on tour and how they went down south through Alabama, the Mobile, and everywhere else. And skateboarding wasn't money back then either.
Right.
So their team couldn't afford hotels to put everybody up in. So they basically would live with whoever would let them. And he was really nervous about that, being a young black teenager in a very outlaw pirate sport like skateboarding in the South. And he grew up in the South, so he knew what he might be facing.
Right.
And he said that all of his fears were for naught because everybody was so accepting and inclusive and were just like, absolutely, come in, hang out with us, stay here for the night until you move to the next city. And then he never had an issue with it there in the skateboarding community.
Did he have the Lovecraft map?
No, I don't think so. So his speech was really moving because he expressed how much he loved skateboarding and the skateboarding community, where we've always been, inclusive isn't really the right word, because with skateboarding, we don't care what your color, what your gender, what your sex, what your whatever is. If you're skating rad, that's the only thing that matters.
For me, it was always if you're just putting in the work.
Yeah, if you're putting in the work and
I didn't care if you couldn't land a trick. If you were out there willing to put in the work and you're putting in the miles. For us growing up, we didn't have a car, we didn't have anything. Mm-hmm. You put in miles on that skateboard.
Oh yeah.
And if you got somebody that's sitting next to you putting in the miles with you and just learning to traverse the streets, just to get from point A to point B,
mm-hmm.
that was good enough for us.
Yeah,
and because even we had guys that would just skate with us and then just sit down and cheer us while we were skating.
Mm-hmm.
And that was cool enough. Or they would run down to Del Taco and get us some food while we were skating, or do something. And they just wanted to be around and watch and learn when they could.
Yeah.
And we were happy with them for doing that. We never gave them any grief or anything. We helped them out whenever we could. And that's just what we felt skateboarding was about.
Yeah. And it's still like that. In fact, it's expanded even more so with a lot of the socio-political issues going on nowadays, where it's even more accepting. Well, shoot, the group of guys I skate with, here I am in my 50s. I am not good, but they still cheer me on when they see me trying hard to do anything. And you know, and it's the old guys, it's the young kids. I skate with a bunch of little bitty, like itty bitty kids. Damn kids are so freaking good too.
I hate them.
Jesus Christ.
That's because they don't weigh anything, and they have no fear.
And they bounce still.
Yeah.
I don't bounce. I just go thud. And then it takes me a minute to get
And they
up
have
off
the
ground.
ankles and knee strength to skate
Yeah.
on very floppy trucks. Excuse me.
But yeah, it's the community is really awesome. And even at the Hall of Fame, how many people were referencing a certain skateboarder, a former skateboarder who's basically gone crazy into conspiracy theories and hates everybody and claims he's the only punk rocker left in the world that's a true punk rocker. He's a total jackass. But even that guy was still getting accolades from people that he openly does not like, and they know he does not like them.
Mm-hmm.
They were still giving him his props because of what he did for skateboarding in the early 80s. So we're the only person that isn't ever going to get accolades or get accepted into the Hall of Fame is probably going to be Mark Rogowski. For those who don't know him, Mark Gator Rogowski. He was a pro in the 80s. Dude had a gift. He was just good. Power, style. He ended up murdering a girl brutally. Not just like, you're dead. Beat the hell out of her with a car club and then buried her in the desert in a surf bag. He's in prison for life. He's the only guy that is never going to get accolades or get accepted into the Hall of Fame. So you got to be pretty bad for skaters to not honor your skating.
Yeah.
You know,
He had to have done some wrong shit.
yeah. So, I mean, like, we'll excuse everything if you're rad. And we're only going to accept you for your rad skating.
Right.
If you're a piece of shit person, we are not going to, no. Fuck off.
Right.
But if your skateboarding is rad, we're going to say your skateboarding is rad. We keep it very separate. So that guy, Gator, no, he's never gonna. He's shunned completely, no matter what. So to have them still show accolades to the crazy guy is pretty, I don't heartwarming is not the right word.
But it's the same thing with Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
You know, you can't ignore anything he did when he was wrestling because he was a phenomenal wrestler. Sure, he killed his family and wife and then himself, but you know, he was also post-concussion syndrome and had a lot of mental problems going on with that.
Yeah.
So it's horrible what he did, but he also was phenomenal. You can't take away his skill.
His accomplishments
Yeah,
and his person are two separate things.
Exactly.
And we can separate those.
And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go to a Benoit party. I'll support his son on the wrestling scene.
Yeah,
you know, he still has one living son who's trying to become a wrestler, so I'll support that. You know, just like they'll talk about Gator and his skateboarding moves. You can't deny what he did. That's what he did. He created the moves. You can't get away from it.
If anybody has seen,
it's not like we're paying him royalties for it.
Yeah, if anybody's ever seen the company Vision Streetwear, that was basically his creation through the Vision skateboard company. He started Vision Streetwear.
He had a vision.
And so if anybody's ever seen that logo or that name, that was him. And it's still today. Somebody bought it out, and you can buy this stuff from J.C. Penney's, for God's sake.
Yeah, over marketed it.
Yeah, it's way over marketed now. But yeah, that's the skateboarding community. We love your skateboarding, so it doesn't matter, you know, young, old, man, woman, whatever gender you are or think you are or want to be or whatever. We don't care about that stuff. If your skateboarding's rad and you're putting in the work, or even if it's not rad and we see you trying and putting in the work,
and you're not a pedophile,
right? I mean, we got some weirdos out there. Just saying, we got some weirdos.
Right.
And your level of weirdo is whatever level of weirdo you think is, because things that are weird to me are not weird to other people and vice versa. So we've got some characters, and we don't care. If you're putting in the work and you're a good person, then we're going to support you. If you turn out to be a jackass down the road, we'll say your skateboarding was rad, but
You're a jackass.
you're a jackass. There was one person who came up for the ladies, and Reyes. Oh, my memory is so bad. I tried to look it up before I came on. Forgot. I know. She's from Northern California. Well, from Hawaii, but grew to prominence in the San Francisco area, and her skating is freaking phenomenal. They showed clips of her skating. I was like, damn, and she got up there and thanked the skateboard community as well, because skateboarding saved so many people from lives of crime, drugs. It also put people into crime and drugs too. Not get it twisted here.
Right. I'm on drugs now.
Skateboarding isn't the savior, isn't the all powerful savior. But she got up there to think how, if it wasn't for skateboarding, she would probably be in jail or have 10 baby daddies and 10 baby moms. But skateboarding saved her from taking the wrong path. Bucky Lassick, same thing. He had a hard life growing up with multiple father figures that were not the greatest. And he said, if it wasn't for skateboarding, I'd probably be robbing 7-Elevens right now.
But then you got to look at Ben Margera,
who is on a roller coaster of up and down. 1 minute he's clean and sober and things are back on track, and the next minute he's back down in the depths. He hasn't stooped low enough for people to shun him yet. People might be wary of his antics, but they still want and root for Bam to get back to being the Bam we all knew before he went.
Yeah. We all want him better so he can continue to be a shitty person.
Yeah, kind of. It's the antics everybody loved.
Right.
And he seems to be on the right track right now.
Let's hope he sticks with it.
We hope we stick with it. It seems like his current wife is cracking the whip and keeping him on the straight and narrow, but we'll see how long that lasts.
So with that, without going too overboard on our time, because we're at 1:30, we're going to spend the rest of the episode showing you some of the photos Craig took while he was there. So we're going to let that run through on the slideshow, and with that, we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Mm-hmm. So I want to thank Craig for coming on the show. Thank you for being down there. You also had a little fun with your son when you went to the Ontario Convention, correct?
Oh yeah, we went to Comic-Con Revolution. It was me and the kids, Liam and Leo, Lottie, and we had a good time. It's a small convention, so it was not too overwhelming, but you could see everything in about an hour.
Right.
It was fun. There was a lot of good people. The kids had a good time. Everybody was nice. The only complaint I would have is their parking, and their parking organization was atrocious.
Yeah, it's always that way. Their parking is ridiculous. I have no idea what they're doing.
No, it's there was me and probably about a dozen other people following each other trying to find the parking.
Yeah.
Because what they do is they'll open up one lot, and when it fills up, they'll open up another lot.
Right.
But they don't tell you where that other lot
or
is.
Bother to move the cones.
Yeah. So there was a time when a caravan of us actually ended up getting back on the freeway, driving away from the con, getting off the freeway, making a big old swing U-turn, come back around to go back to con to find parking, because there's no signs telling us where to go.
Yep.
And the one big lot that was empty
across the street,
basically in the dirt lot across the street, they hadn't opened yet. So there's just workers standing there waiting for them to unlock the gate. it was signs saying we could park there, but they weren't letting anybody park there. So none of us knew where to go. So we finally pulled over and said, "Hey, where do we park?" And they go, "Oh, go 2 blocks that way, and it's the north parking lot or something like that." I was like, "Oh, really? Where are the signs telling us to do that?" Other than that bullshit scenario of parking was stupid. Everything else about it was totally fine. Everybody was super chill. It was a good time. It's fun for the family without being overwhelmed, like going down to San Diego, which is a madhouse.
Right. Overwhelmingly crazy madness. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was. I would go again. I definitely would.
Awesome. Then maybe we can have you go next year.
Yeah. I will take photos and be better at that. I'm old, so I don't take pictures a whole lot. I forget.
No, he relies on his memory, and we know what
that
happens
sucks.
there.
Yeah. So.
Well, again, thank you, Craig, for being on the show today. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And again, we're going to leave you with a little photo montage from the Hall of Fame, Skateboarders Hall of Fame for 2025. So, all right, guys, we'll catch you guys later.
Yeah.